5 takeaways from the 2025 Emmy nominations. Emmy nominations came out on Tuesday, and the winners will be announced on September 14. There are a lot of familiar faces, a few new ones, and a few new old ones. You can see the list here. Here's what we noticed. Shows with big, well-regarded casts ran up their totals. Severance and The Studio, both from Apple TV Plus, were the most nominated shows on the drama and comedy sides, respectively. Severance received 27 nominations, and The Studio received 23. Of those Severance nominations, 9 were for actors. Of the Studio nominations, 10 were for actors, including quite a run through the guest actor categories, where 5 men and 1 woman were nominated. The Studio and Severance were both very well-reviewed shows, too. But when you look at totals, it helps to have a lot of famous faces people admire. See also The White Lotus, which continues to crowd the supporting categories in drama. The supporting actor in a comedy series category has a couple of nice surprises. It will always be annoying that the Emmys never paid much attention to the beautiful, funny Somebody Somewhere on HBO. But in the show's final year of eligibility, at least, they found room to recognize Jeff Hiller, who played Joel, and who gave one of the most distinctive, heartfelt, big-hearted performances of the season. They also recognize an up-and-comer named Harrison Ford, his first Emmy nomination ever for his great work in Apple TV Plus's Shrinking, which was one of the most disappointing snubs last time around. The streaming players are always shifting. For a while, the big streamers at the Emmys were Netflix and Hulu, but Apple TV Plus, Max, and Disney Plus are all well established in the awards game at this point. Apple TV Plus has to be thrilled with the big showings for The Studio and Severance, plus Shrinking and Slow Horses, and even the very so-so Presumed Innocent miniseries. HBO is still very popular among voters, but its presence is changing a bit. When it comes to big nominees, there are The White Lotus and The Last of Us on the drama side, and those aired on traditional HBO. But then there's The Pitt in drama series and Hacks in comedy, and those were on Max, or what was then Max. In other words, they were streaming only. An outlier, The Penguin, which is competing in the limited or anthology series category, was developed for Max, but ultimately did air on HBO. Disney Plus also got 14 nominations for Andor, and Netflix is still in there with Adolescence, Monsters, The Lyle and Eric Mendes story, and with Black Mirror. Hulu's top performer this year, at least by numbers, and excluding those FX shows like The Bear, is only Murders in the Building, though Paradise did well also. There are always some heartbreakers. There is a difference between the concept of a snub and a nod that just didn't happen, but there's always some very good work that goes unrecognized. As a big fan of The Pitt, I was disappointed not to see Taylor Durden, who played Dr. King, nominated, and as a fan of Netflix's A Man on the Inside, I would certainly have nominated that. There will be great consternation over Diego Luna and the rest of the cast not being nominated for Andor, often paired with eye-rolling over all those The White Lotus acting nominations, which do seem to be nearly automatic. You get on that show, you get nominated. The most fun comes from the first-time nominees. It's always fun to see people get their first nods. There are established actors who just haven't specialized in TV, like Harrison Ford, Colin Farrell in The Penguin, and Javier Bardem and Chloe Sevigny, both for Monsters. There are surprising first-timers like Kristen Bell and Adam Brody, who've both been on TV for ages and were both finally nominated for Netflix's Nobody Wants This. Exciting actors who are blowing up, like Trimel Tillman and Zach Cherry, both of Severance, the great Michael Urie nominated for Shrinking and worth every vote, the marvelous Kristen Milioti, who's been the best thing about several different shows and is nominated now for The Penguin. And, of course, in the end, there are all those nominations for The Studio, which, as a show business satire, would give a hefty side eye to the whole process.